Thank you, Provost, for that wonderful introduction. It's my great joy to be here today with all of you. And as I look at the 2023 Young African Leaders, I know just how magnificent this journey has been for you to come from all over Africa, to come together in this place where you are to meet each other and learn from each other and to study. And as I thought about what we might say here today, the word juxtaposition came to my mind. I was overwhelmed by the juxtaposition of it all. This word means putting things beside each other so that you can discern either the sameness or the difference between them, compare and contrast. And juxtapositions runs through all of what we're doing here today. Some people think of Africa as if it is a country. They don't realize that Africa is a magnificent continent that is 5,000 miles from north to south. 4,600 miles from east to west, and a little wider when you add the island nations off of the coast of Africa where some of you come from. And so people might think, oh, they're from Africa, they must know each other. But of course, that's not true. It's not like Africa is a neighborhood. Africa, like many places, is a continent filled with different nations. But as I read your backgrounds and thought about what you've done, I can see a thread that runs through all of you, even though you were in different places. And it seems to me that you probably thought, as you were living in your nation, doing what you were doing, fighting for human rights, fighting for gender equality, fighting for youth empowerment, fighting for getting out the vote, fighting for democracy, you probably thought that you were all alone. But now that we have you sitting beside each other, you can see that you were not. You can see that there were others who were just like you, worried about things just like you have worried about in a whole nother part, thousands of miles away, doing the same thing. Doesn't that tell us that there are currents that run through human nature, that run through human rights, that run through our spirits, that are unifying powerfully, no matter where you come from and no matter what language you speak? And so even within the core of the leaders from Africa, the power of juxtaposition is speaking to me because it teaches us so much about what we might become when we think of us as humans and put ourselves side by side and recognize the likeness and even the differences that we can talk about and learn from. But then you come across the ocean, that 5,000 miles from the west coast of Africa to this coast where Virginia is. Now, in years past, black Africans in the bottom of ships chained in bondage were brought on that journey that took 2 to 3 months. Food was just thrown at them in the bottom of the boat, and they could hardly survive through the suffering that they had to overcome. Yet they came here, and here's juxtaposition. Those Africans landed 38 miles from here in what was called Old Point Comfort, which is now Fort Monroe. But more than that, they came to Jamestown a few years later, right up the road, which is 15 miles. And so, kinsmen of you, somebody in here has a kinsman who was brought over in those ships and who landed not far from here and who toiled just a short distance up the road. There's juxtaposition again. And now we're inside a building that was built with the hands of some of your predecessors. And we talk about democracy in a place where some of your predecessors and mine were slaves. In this a magnificent world, with the turmoil that we see and all the roiling that it took and all the fighting and all the effort that it took to change the world to where we are now, though it is not perfect. Isn't it a magnificent thing that the juxtaposition we see includes even progress towards humanity understanding that we are the same? It is stunning to me as we look at the human genome, which is the road map to how we were made, that the least difference among all people in the world is skin color. I don't know whether you knew that, but you can find that out. You Google it, you will find out that it takes more genetic coating to determine your hairline than it does to determine the color of your skin. It takes more genetic coding to determine the shape of your earlobe than it does to determine the color of your skin. And so, isn't it something like God looking down and smiling at us about our ignorance when the smallest difference between us has been the cause of the greatest fighting and strife and hatred between us in the world? How stupid have all of us been all these years? And I worry because of the hatred that killed people of color, that is something like wiping out the beautiful flowers in the Amazon jungle, that they tell us that every time they clear an acre, they are throwing away medicines that might have cured humanity of diseases. And I wonder whether the hatred that has killed us by skin color has thrown away the answers to the problems of humanity. And so here we are now in this place, not far from those horrible places, but also not far. It's just a few feet. You might have passed it already, to the monument outside the hearth that remembers the enslaved black people who helped build the College of William and Mary, where you will be here with us and study. And so as I look at you and all the things that you've done, because you are leaders already. You couldn't be in this room if you had not already shown that you were journalists and lawyers and leaders of government and researchers for parliament and all the many things that you are. If you had not already done something powerful, you wouldn't be here now to learn a little bit more. And so life teaches us that when we work hard and we build a foundation, we can move up and ratchet up and keep going. And so I call on you now in the spirit of the poets to be builders of ships of state, to be builders of nations. Now Longfellow thought about this, and he has a poem that's called The Building of the Ship. Now, of course, that's not just a ship, it's the ship of state. Maybe it's even the ark of the whole world that he was talking about. Let's contemplate what this poet said. I will use his words in his poem where he said, "And then the master, in a gesture of command, waved his hand, and at the word loud and sudden there was heard, all around them and below, the sound of hammers blow on blow, knocking loose the shores and spurs, and see she stirs. She starts, she moves, she seems to feel the thrill of life along her keel, and spurning with her foot the ground, in one exulting, joyous bound, she leaps into the ocean's arms, and lo, from the assembled crowd, there rose a shout prolonged and loud, that to the ocean seemed to say, take her, old bridegroom, old and gray, take her into thy protecting arms, with all her youth and all her charms. How beautiful she is, how fair she lies within those arms that press her form with many a soft caress of tenderness and watchful care. Sail forth into the sea, O ship, through wind and rain, right onward steer. The moistened eye, the trembling lip are not the signs of doubt or fear. Sail forth into the sea of life, O gentle, loving, trusting wife, and safe from all adversity, upon the bosom of the sea, thy comings and thy goings be. For gentleness and love and trust prevail o'er angry wave and gust, and in the wreck of noble lives something immortal still survives. Thou too sail on, O ship of state, sail on, O Union strong and great. Humanity with all its fears, with all its hopes hopes for future years is hanging breathless on thy fate. We know what master laid thy keel, what workman wrought thy ribs of steel, who made each mast and sail and rope, what anvils rang, what hammers beat, in what a forge and what a heap were shaped the anchors of thy hope. Fear not each sudden sound and shock, 'tis of the wave and not the rock, 'tis but the flapping of the sail, and not a rent made by the gale. In spite of rocks and tempest roar, in spite of false lights on the shore, sail on, nor fear to breast the sea. Our hearts, our hopes are all with thee. Our hearts, our hopes, our prayers, our tears, our faith triumphant o'er our fears, are all with thee, are all with thee. Members of the Young African Leaders Class of 2023, we must depend on you. You are our hope for changing the world for the better. God bless you.